Alcohol Beyond This Point podcast.
This isn't two podcasters talking business. This is two business guys trying to podcast.
Welcome to Showbiz, baby.
Yeah, I know. It's so fucking bright.
Yeah.
We finally figured out our lighting situation, and I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, we finally figured out what looks the best on the film. And
Go figure it's the most amount of light we can generate.
We have two ring lights, the overhead shitty fluorescence. Yeah, not ideal.
It's great.
It's great. Welcome to the podcast, Alcohol Beyond This Point. That's the show where we discuss business topics and other things, and then we get drunk, and then we see if we also can talk about them.
That's a great description.
This is episode
Bravo.
66. Execute episode 66, I guess. How are you, buddy?
I'm okay. It's a bit of a weird day, honestly.
Well, in which way?
I guess it was a weird framing to the day where I just was like, I don't know, just kind of like halfway into it. Because, I mean, we hung out last night. It was like really late, and I got up really tired, and I was just kind of discombobulated. And then was just kind of having a bunch of weird thoughts just about like business in general. And you know how you get sometimes with like slow mornings where you're just like questioning your life.
Yes.
But like not in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I run into a guy from North Forge.
Okay.
On job site.
Which is a
startup incubator.
I was gonna say think tank, but not really.
No, it's an incubator.
They fund and support small businesses
And primarily technology-focused startups.
and they have like a cool, what do you call it, like 3D printing lab and shit.
Fabrication shop, yeah.
Yeah.
Where you can rapid prototyping lab.
Yeah,
One of the best in the
country,
the continent, actually, apparently.
Yeah, so these are people that both of us have had a lot of experience with. Like they're in the business community. We hang out with these people a lot. So that was the context for you listeners.
Yeah, not for years though. And so this guy was at his day job, but was using his pet side project technology on site. I guess like doing a trial with the builder I'm working with.
Okay.
And it was a really cool tech. I don't want to get into it because it's still like pre-market, but it was really fucking cool. And all of a sudden I asked him about it. I'm like, he's like, oh yeah, this is mine. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, yeah, I'm working on my seed funding, like first round. I'm like, oh, who are you funding with? He's like, oh, well, I'm working with North Forge. And I'm like, oh? I'm like, I used to be with North Forge. And he's like, looks at me, he's like, what? And then, yeah, we just kind of had, sporadic conversations throughout the day whenever we weren't doing anything. And, it was kind of really weird to touch back into that world and get a little dose of excitement. And I was asking a bunch of questions. It was getting him all excited. He was like, holy shit, somebody actually knows the right questions to ask. And he was like getting all hyped up talking about his business.
These usual contractor troglodytes that don't know their ass from their elbow.
Well, when you see a cool thing on someone's phone, you don't be like, oh, what's your revenue model?
I do.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
me and you, this has happened countless times where we're like drunk, like networking with people, and that's like our first question. Okay, what's your name? Also, what's your revenue model? Like,
yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And so I asked him that question. He just kind of looks at me, and I'm like, wait, it's not like subscription. It couldn't be just subscription, right? Like, it's got to be that plus this something. He's like, that's exactly what it is. And he kind of explains it. It was a little more interesting than I had expected. Yeah. And he's like, well, what do you think? Is that a good idea? And I'm like, oh, it sounds great to me, dude. I don't know.
I remember more than a few times we've both whipped out little black books out of our breast pockets and started like taking notes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because I'm just genuinely interested, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it is. Like, I'm not trying to be a fucking asshole or an expert on your business. It's just like I'm interested. I'm going to ask, the best questions I can think to ask because I want to understand it better. But it turns out this guy like knows very little in terms of he seems pretty green, I guess. Like, obviously his product is amazing, but he seems kind of new to the North Forge space.
How old is he?
30s. Early.
Ancient.
Yeah. Maybe late 20s, early 30s, but yeah, close to our age, I guess.
Don't remind me that I'm late 20s.
You're welcome. But yeah, I was just mentioning like different builders and stuff that might be interested in working with, and yeah, it was kind of a cool moment. So yeah, it was like really weird day. Really fucking weird. It's like a blast from the past.
Yeah.
And we're just griping about the tech bros that just brag about working 80-hour weeks when in reality they just like worked on a pitch deck for 35 minutes and then sat on YouTube and hung out at the coffee machine for 2.5 hours, did 2 meetings where they didn't close or do anything, and then hung out some more and then watched some more YouTube and then, you know, answered some emails that didn't accomplish anything, and like, oh yeah, fucking 14-hour day, yippee.
That's the dream, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess. And then you show up at one meeting in 3 months and then you go and raise $10 million. You'd be like, oh, look how much money I raised. It's great. Sometimes it works.
This
somehow.
We're definitely nearing the last corner of capitalism.
Yeah.
I
see. So we played Monopoly last night.
We did, and how did that end up, Tyler?
With our mastermind group. Well, the fact that it took me about... You already had 6 houses by the time I really understood what was going on. I probably haven't played it since I was like 7 or 8 years old. And even then, I think I played it once and I didn't really understand it. So realistically, it was my first full-ass Monopoly game.
You were a real estate developer. You are currently wearing a hoodie from a real estate development company.
I understand the principles. It's just the fucking game theory I don't know.
That's fair. I'm currently looking at a framed photograph of Mr. Monopoly on the wall.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. And yeah, you were wearing your Mr. Monopoly hat. No, I really like the experience in terms of like just watching you get fucking, I don't know, considerably more lucky than most people in the game. You just got a really fast head start. You had passed go and collected money 4 times before I did for my first time.
Yeah.
And I went to jail.
Every time around the board.
Basically every time around the board I went to jail and stayed in for at least 2 rolls. And then when I got out, I just like landed on one of your properties and like got bankrupted. Like that was the game experience for me. It was fucking terrible.
I would consider myself lucky in general.
Except for when you're not.
No, I'm always lucky.
But anyways, the funny part about the game was we're joking about the idea of late stage capitalism, and we're like, they need to make a new Monopoly for millennials, which is the banker is a player.
And he wins, and he already has all the property.
And he already has a house on every property, and you have to somehow, while renting every step of the way, have to save up enough money to negotiate and get leverage over the banker so that you can get what he has. And that's your starting point. And then you got to play the game.
Yeah, and I think JL had suggested that you guys just beat the shit out of me physically, like in real life.
Yeah.
And then redistribute my wealth over everyone else. So
yeah, we considered it.
There's different ways to go about it, I guess. But when I was in high school, we had to do like a career course. Like it was part of our English was like we had to do a term on planning for like your career. So they made us write a resume and shit like that, right? Mm-hmm. And they made us write down and explain our 5 most marketable skills, like our 5 strongest skills that could help us get a job in the future. So my 5, if I can recall off the top of my head, having a beard.
Perfect.
High
school pubic beard.
Being lucky.
Okay.
These are in no order because I'm just trying to remember them. Gambling, I remember, was one of them. Fuck, what are the other ones?
Your teachers must be so surprised.
But anyway, being lucky was one of them. We had to write a resume for like a realistic job that we could have, and then like a job, an unreal, like a.
I remember doing
Grail
this.
job,
yeah,
right?
I remember doing this exercise.
And so my realistic resume was applying to be the CEO of like World Bank.
Yeah.
And then my unrealistic one was like God King of the Milky Way galaxy or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, like my realistic one is like I will take no less than $100 million a year plus stock options and like.
Okay, Tim Cook.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think that's to be fair, that's including stock options.
Even when I was a little shit, I was still a little shit.
No kidding.
That's this week's Alcohol Beyond This Point shirt.
Even
when I was a little shit, I was a little shit.
Yeah, I fucking believe it. Yeah, you've been the same as long as I've known you.
But I think I've been lucky.
I think so.
There's a Babylonian proverb. I'm gonna butcher it off the top of my head, but good fortune is like the best quality man can have. Like, toss him into the Euphrates, and like as you not, he would come out with a pearl in his hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
But my way of approaching the idea of luck actually kind of came from Stefan Arnio. He used to always say this in his seminars. He's like, if you show up at the right place at the right time with the right skills, you're gonna get lucky pretty often.
Yeah, like I don't actually believe in like cosmic luck,
No.
obviously. But here's the thing.
It's a version of that, just less specific.
Well, here it's like flipping coins, let's say, right? You flip a coin 50-50 to get a good outcome, right?
It's actually not. If you flip a coin 500 times, it will not be 50-50.
I said flip it once.
It's also not 50-50.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Anyways, look into coin flip probabilities.
If you flip a coin one time, Tyler, it is exactly 50-50 that it will land. It's not more likely one flip to land on one side and not the other.
It's literally not. You have a 1 in 600 chance it lands on the edge.
Have you ever seen a coin land on the edge?
I haven't flipped a coin 600 times.
I have. I was actually in a coin flipping.
No, there's
club.
a ridiculous amount of statistical analysis on the simple idea of flipping coins, and the best part about all this analysis over thousands and thousands of coin flips and like controlled scientific studies and using fucking robots is they're like, it's not 50-50. We don't know why.
Okay. Maybe it was I was just trying to make an analogy.
Oh, sorry, I had to fucking deep cut the science. I'm sorry.
Now I'm trying to like think of another analogy that you can't ruin.
Schrodinger's cat.
Schrodinger's coin.
Sure.
The coin is neither flipped, but it's always flipped.
The coin is neither heads nor tails until it lands.
Okay, anyway, I'm going to... metaphorically, if a coin was 50-50 to land on either side when you flip a coin, right? So, say, like... This is a bad example. Okay, say I have a D20, right? Like a dice with 20 sides, right?
Sure.
And if I roll a 20, I become successful and have a good career and have money and have a product that sells, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
And if I roll any other number, just my life keeps happening. Right? You roll it one time, unlikely that you're going to succeed. But keep fucking rolling it. Eventually you're going to hit that 20.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how I feel out of it, is like, luck obviously doesn't exist, but if there's always probability that you could succeed, if you just do it more than everyone else.
If you just keep beating the dead horse, eventually it'll be CPR and you'll get up.
You are having a weird day today.
I think that's a great analogy. Beat the dead horse until you restart his heart and he gets up and carries you to safety and success and happiness and joy. It's a dumb analogy, but also I like the idea of, like, that's what a lot of business is. It's like there's no, oh, we get lucky and you get this client, or you get lucky and this product takes off, or you get lucky and you go viral. No, you just fucking beat that thing to death until you've proven beyond a reasonable doubt that either it does or does not work.
Give me an example, Tyler, because I think you're just babbling at this point.
You don't get the analogy?
No, I get it. I want you to understand it.
So you start a business and you make a product, say terrible wine, and it doesn't sell. Do you say, well, we tried, or do you try and make a different kind of slightly less terrible wine and continue to push it in the same manner?
Is there a reason why you looked at my bottle of wine on the table and said terrible wine?
No, that one's fine. I was thinking about sugar wine, actually. It's fine. No, that's the analogy. You keep fucking beating the dead horse until it's not dead anymore.
Yeah,
or you prove beyond all reasonable doubt that that fucker's dead.
Yeah, just
like,
keep buying lottery tickets, and then one day you will win statistically.
Well,
wait,
wasn't there like a big kerfuffle about this? Some American, either individual or corporation just bought so many lottery tickets, like more than half the lottery tickets in a lottery that they just won, and they're like, well, that's not, technically it's not against the rules, but fuck you.
I don't know. I've never heard that before, but I feel like that's a good strategy. I bet there is a break-even point where you're guaranteed to make more.
It was some nerd that like figured out, and they're like,
No,
I can afford to do this so and so many times, and it's a certainty I'll make my money back if I do it this many times.
Well, surely you can't make more money than they take in. That's not how that works.
You can't, but I said they only just bought over 50%, which means there's still at least 40 to 50% of dupies.
Yeah.
And you just gotta get some of that money.
Yeah.
Plus, sometimes jackpots roll over as well, so you get the dupies of the last round.
Yeah.
So there's money to be made, and apparently it's. I think they may have closed the loophole in some ways, but yeah.
So what you're saying is
you got to buy a lot.
Here's the thing, guys. Don't start a business. Just buy scratch tickets.
That is what I'm saying.
And if you buy enough of them, statistically, you will win.
This sounds like something you'd see on Always Sunny.
Well, this seems like we're being sarcastic.
Are we?
But people actually believe that they can win the lottery
With scratch offs, yeah. Yeah, I mean, some people do.
But it is statistically impossible for you to win the lottery.
Yeah, it's a statistical anomaly to be that guy that goes and wins.
Lotteries are a tax on poor people.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively.
Yeah.
Poor people play the lottery.
Which is interesting because where does the revenue for lotteries in our province, where does that go?
Same as liquor sales.
Which is?
Fucking paying government employees $80,000 to do nothing.
But they don't generate any profits?
It's supposed to go to like healthcare and stuff, but who the fuck knows?
Yeah, that's fair.
This province generates about $600 million a year from lottery.
Okay.
That includes the casinos, though.
Right. So it's less than liquor.
So yeah, it's about even. Sorry, I was just trying to think. No, it's structured. The provincial government, the federal government, and then the Western Canada Lottery Corporation.
Okay, yeah.
All have like equal stake in any lottery.
Yeah.
And the Western Canada Lottery Corporation is the only ones that are allowed to do lotteries and scratch tickets and shit. It needs to be like produced by them.
Okay.
And then they pay like 30% of it to the province or something. It's like a whole, I don't know. But
bracket.
Rich people don't buy scratch tickets. They just don't.
I'm going to say it's better that it's run that way than if it was like small privatized companies that you just like every second month you hear just a scandal. They're like, oh, nobody ever wins these.
Well, I'm reading P.T. Barnum's autobiography still. I read like a chapter a week at the farmer's market. And he made a bunch of money doing lotteries before it was illegal. Yeah. And he would just, yeah. He didn't scam anyone, but it literally is a scam. Lotteries.
Oh, sketchy. Yeah, it's lotteries are unregulated in Ohio.
Okay. And you spent a lot of time down there.
We were going to do
house lottery.
We were gonna lotto off a house. It was gonna be dope. We had all the financials figured out. Like it was gonna be profitable.
Oh, 100%.
But 100% someone was gonna get the money, and then we were gonna dump the profits back into basically like we were just gonna kind of scale it up and like just basically the idea was to dump it into community programs.
Yeah.
And I guess generate goodwill with the community, right? And because that was something that we just didn't have. We didn't have any, goodwill with the community at all. You're just getting fucking robbed all the time.
Yeah, all these white Canadians come down here to.
Well, they didn't even know who we were. They didn't even know that much. They just knew
fair.
It was foreign money, which it was.
Yeah.
But I mean, like all this foreign money was going into their community, and it was like you were resented for it, right?
Yeah.
And we were thinking about like building. Do like one summer, build a basketball court or like repave something that's already there, like replace some nets, like just, improve community stuff that was already existing, and just try to find a way to get involved, because local politicians don't give a shit about you. The police 100% don't care. Like, we were getting robbed constantly, and they didn't even pretend to care or investigate.
Yeah.
Like, we were getting robbed at a rate of almost twice a week, and they're like, okay, whatever. And like, I talked to, like, a sergeant or something like that. He's like, okay, whatever. Like, just fucking got blown off. Like, you could not get shit. And then finally we just started working with more deeply with the local staff. We went to like a few events, and all of a sudden we were 1 degree away from the city council. It's like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. I was like, oh, now there's all these city programs. Like, the city of Cleveland has all these programs for like their healthcare workers, where they're like getting they get these huge mortgage subsidies. So if you're a nurse, you get like half your down payment covered and like a 1% interest rate for your first 20 years or some shit like that. Like, they had crazy programs, and then we could like get in on that. But nobody ever tells you this. Like,
Yeah.
there was a lot of reasons to do it that were entirely selfish, but there was also a great deal of like actually wanting to do something good there. And as soon as we found out about the whole lottery thing, that it was just like anybody can just like go fucking raffle a house. I don't even think there was like a permit or like a form you had to fill out. You just fucking do it.
You can do raffles here, but it needs to be for charity.
Right.
You're not allowed to profit off of it. So you can do like wedding raffles or whatever, but you need to donate all the money.
Yeah.
Or the money needs to be used as like a fundraiser. Like, I think you can do raffles legally with a permit for like a wedding social, but then you need to like spend the money on that wedding social.
What about fundraisers? Like,
if you're a registered charity, you can absolutely do.
No, what if you're not? What if you're an individual raising money for like medical expenses and shit? Because that's been a thing that's happened. Like from Southern Manitoba, like where I'm from, people do like a dinner or soup and pie fundraiser or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's been cases of people that were just like fucking faking illnesses, and they just walked away with the money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's legal off the top of my head, just from
They're like weekly. Churches are putting them on.
Yeah, well, churches are nonprofits though.
Yeah, but the churches weren't. That, like, it was happening in churches, but it wasn't put on by the church.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty familiar with the Liquor and Lotteries Act, but more on the liquor, obviously.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, you can't do it as an individual legally, but you also can't, name a thing legally, and we fucking do that all the time. So
it's fair. Yeah, maybe nobody cares.
Yeah, like, who's good? Like, you can't. They couldn't even fucking regulate health orders down there during the pandemic.
No.
I don't think they're fucking regulating this shit, right? Because you'd have to have someone in your community, like, snitch them to the fucking province, and then they would have to care. Like, I don't know.
Like, oh no, they're raising medical expenses for their grandma.
Yeah,
There's... Like, we should crack down on those motherfuckers.
Yeah, it's definitely a gray area, but... Yeah. Anyway, we'll move here into our segment that we call Shot Caller, the part of the show where you, the audience, can pick the shot that we take. Today's shot comes from the Forager Botanical Whiskey. I think we've had it on this show before. It's a whiskey that gets aged in like gin botanicals, so it's kind of a weird in-between here. It's nice, smooth, infused whiskey. That
gross.
Really hurt my...
That was really gross. Don't do that ever again.
Anyway, thank you, The Forager, for sponsoring this episode.
Fun as always.
This is the first shot in a while that we've taken that was actually 40%, so we don't have to take a second one.
Probably will.
But you probably will anyway, yeah. I don't know. World of Watches happen, or World Wonders, Watches and Wonders, whatever the fucking international trade show in Switzerland.
Of course, it's Switzerland, yep.
For watches, where everyone showcases their new watches for the year.
Okay.
It happened today.
And?
So Rolex announced a couple new watches. Their new GMT Explorer is made for left-handed people.
Okay.
It has the dial on the other side, or in the dial on the left side instead of the right side. So it's like made for wearing on your right arm.
Interesting.
Yeah. Everyone hates it in the watch group I'm in. I think it looks fine. It looks like just like a GMT. Like it looks like a shittier Submariner basically. But it's interesting. Like everyone was saying, or in the thread that I saw this morning, everyone was like, "Oh, it looks upside down."
Yeah.
But I didn't mind it. I thought it was kind of unique looking, right? And highlight for me was Tudor, who's also owned by Rolex, but it's like their entry level, like $3,000 to $5,000 watches. They released a ton of new stuff for 2022. So their black bays, I think they're getting bigger now. I want to say they're like 38 or 39 millimeter, and they're released the Google what a Submariner root beer in quotations looks like. It's like black on the top, brown on the bottom. They did the same kind of color scheme with a two-tone band with like a gold and silver band. I saw a Zenith that was pretty nice, and I just watched a highlight video, so I don't know, but
that is a universe I am so unfamiliar with. I'm like,
I like I said a few episodes ago, I think I want to get in the watch business over the next couple of years, and
So what's your entrance strategy? What are you gonna start with? Are you gonna go to try to find like some shit on the internet that's cheap and broken, or are you gonna just try to find deals, or?
Yeah, so it'll depend on how my business, like my main business, goes over the next little bit. I haven't been paying myself much the last 6 to 9 months, because the pandemic, got worse before it got better, and I was closed, and we have a lot of debt to pay off, and so I haven't been making a ton of money. If I had like 10 or 20 grand to work with of startup capital, I think what I would want to do is buy some, not like cheap watches, but like $1,000 watches. And get in there, and that's where the margin is. Like buying a $1,000 watch and selling it for $1,500, is like a fucking 50% margin, 25% margin, whatever. Rather than like a Rolex, you buy it for like 80,000, sell it for 80,300.
Yeah.
Make 300, but like because there's this on the higher price ones, there's just the margin isn't there, but on lower price ones you can actually make a much better margin, right? But we'll see.
So how do you go about securing a watch for less than it's worth?
Yeah, so most luxury watches never sell for retail. Like they just, a lot of the big companies like produce less than the demand is on purpose. And then they'll like call their list of customers that they already know spend a lot of money with them, and then like sell the new watches to them, kind of thing.
Right. So then it's through dealers and salespeople.
Yeah, ADs, they're called, authorized dealers. And then a lot of them, because a lot of, especially like more wealthy people, will just like constantly trade in watches, sell their watches, buy new ones. Like, oh, new one came out, I'll trade my old one in, get this one, right? So a lot of these watches will end up on secondary market. And there's a bunch of like places online. Like there's a website called Chrono24, which is essentially eBay but only for watches.
Okay.
And then so people, I guess, will like try to find deals in real life and then resell them online for like to make the margin.
Right.
But you just depending on, especially like this market now, the prices of almost all luxury brands are just going up.
Right.
So you buy a watch, it's worth more 2 months later.
Just by waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's the other aspect, is just time.
Yeah, which that won't happen forever. We're obviously in a weird kind of economy right now.
Yeah, people are trying to find places to put their money that they think is safe.
A lot of people are parking money in luxury watches, which is not even a bad idea.
Yeah, it's watches, it's playing cards, it's collectibles, it's whatever. Name a thing, pick a poison.
Because your money is going to be worthless very soon.
Inflation
is so fucking high.
Inflation hedges. Yeah,
your money loses half its value in 7 years with this level of inflation right now.
Yeah,
it's fucked. Like
it is fucked.
I
think I saw something today. Average home price in the U.S. just broke 500,000.
And there's so many fucking poor people in the U.S.
Median home price, yeah.
There's so many fucking poor people in the U.S. that that really surprises me.
They also have an insanely their high end is just crazy. Like, think about a city like, just in general, big cities like you have your New York, your Miami, your LA, and Washington, like fucking Washington D.C. is just insane prices, right? Where you're just like your average condos are going for like 800,000, your houses are going for millions, and there's tens of thousands, there's millions of homes going for millions of dollars. It just cranks that average up.
How expensive was the fucking homes you were selling in Cleveland?
We were selling around between 40 and 80,000.
Yeah, like, and you can't find a fucking house that cheap here.
Yeah, but we're talking like third worst city
still
in the country.
Still though, you know what I mean?
Like, that's the bottom of the market, and you got to realize the volume of those properties is like not. You could go to a suburb in fucking Houston that would be doing triple the volume that we were doing in those $80,000 homes, and they're just trading exclusively in $500,000 to $800,000, row show homes, whatever.
Well, I was talking to my homie who lives in Wyoming, and he's having a kid actually, in the next 6 months kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like going back to school and he's trying to buy a house, and I'm like talking to him about the house price because I'm like, oh, I can't because I visited him a few times, and he lives in rural Wyoming, like a town of Cody, Wyoming, like town of fucking less than 10,000 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which makes it like the third most populous city in Wyoming. Casper, which is the most populous, correct me if I'm wrong, is like 50,000 people.
Yeah, Wyoming is like a Pasadena.
And when I visited him there, most of the houses were fucking like reminded me of like country. Like, you play about the Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah,
those houses, like just shitty country fucking shacks, and he's like they're going for like $300K now.
Jeez.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm looking at a state for shit. Like,
that's wild.
Yeah.
Has there been any change in jobs or industry there?
No. To the like worse probably. He was saying.
Fuck. It's
just, dude. Like, we say it every fucking episode. Things are getting worse before they get better. Like,
and quickly.
Have you been to the grocery store recently? Fucking shelves have been empty.
I haven't seen much of that.
Yeah, me and JL both did.
What day of the week are you going?
I don't know, like middle of the week.
Yeah, it really depends on what day of the week you go. I don't know. I haven't seen really empty shelves at all.
Yeah.
I was at like Freshco, and everything's fully stocked. Sobeys was pretty well stocked. Okay. Superstore occasionally has stuff empty, but it's like you see empty shit on like a Sunday, you come back on Tuesday, and then it's all stocked up again.
Sure.
So there's definitely an element of that where you're like looking for it, but there are certain things that are just consistently gone. Like I found cauliflower right now, for example. Like we usually, instead of getting the whole head of cauliflower, which has like a bunch of waste on it, and it comes in a plastic bag, whatever, I just get the florets, and it's less. When you're just paying for the weight or paying for the thing, it's less of it there, and we just throw it in our reusable bags, way less garbage, right? So that's my preference. They're fucking never there, and the ones that are there are just like covered in mold.
Yeah.
You can tell they've like hacked off and trimmed all the dark spots off of it, and it's like just these draggled, nasty looking things just sitting there, and it looks like they've been there for weeks, but they're fucking gone all the time. Like, there's just certain things that are consistently gone. I don't know if that's like because they're out of season, or is it just that's a supply chain that's cracking.
Well, not with food, but like we were just at IKEA. I have a new roommate. He's been on this podcast twice. Jean-Luc has moved back from British Columbia and now is living with me. So literally we just signed the lease.
British Columbia is like right next to Toronto for you Americans.
Yeah, but everything's near Toronto. So we actually just signed the lease earlier today, but we went to IKEA to buy some smart home stuff because he likes his smart home stuff.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, I'm going to buy smart bulbs and shit, whatever. And IKEA is discontinuing its entire smart home line because apparently they've done the math and they just can't get the chips, and the amount of time it'll take to turn it around, it's just not worth it for them. So they're discontinuing their entire thing. And I think the idea is they're going to try and figure out a new way to do it. Right. That isn't so like tech heavy or whatever.
Yeah. More analog.
Something like that. But like they just the micro semiconductors or whatever, they literally cannot get enough. and to the point where this giant company is like, we're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Like that's
significant.
Just gonna discontinue all this shit. So it was funny because I was making fun of JL for buying $300 worth of light bulbs, but he's like, yeah, my entire system is IKEA, and I can't ever get these again after when they're gone, right? So, it's like it's an interesting.
So I have a client that we just did a house for them, and he has a subscription business locally here of he's a grain speculator, or sorry, grain market analyst. That's the word.
Because the fun fact, the Winnipeg Stock Exchange is almost exclusively grain futures. Fun fact.
Yeah, so he provides market analysis to farmers.
Yeah.
So instead of providing market analysis to traders, like you think, that's what I thought at first, but he provides it to farmers to kind of give them an edge so that they know when best to sell their grain, to hold, to whatever, and give them kind of projections on the market conditions, basically, and also so they can make decisions about what to plant. So he was, this was about a week ago, so I'm like, that's kind of fucked right now, hey? Like with Ukraine and Russia, right? And he's like, yeah, anybody that actually has any grain right now, he's like, they're making a ton of money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, most of my clients don't have anything to sell because of the drought.
Yeah, because we had a drought.
They couldn't even get anything.
Year.
They couldn't even get anything out of the ground last year. So they're like, not only are the market conditions going to be like with this massive demand, he's like, but anyone that could be capitalizing on that didn't get any fucking grain last year.
No, I've been talking to people that were fucked.
And like, if we have another drought this year,
we shouldn't. But
that's similar to last year, or even half a drought. Like, if we don't get a full proper crop, like it's just gonna make things that much worse.
The amount of snowfall we've had makes me optimistic for the.
That doesn't fucking help the summer though, because if it doesn't rain. Yeah,
no, you're right, but also like we had no snow last year either, and there's a lot of nutrients in the melting snow that helps crops. Like I know for my grapes, that's for sure.
I mean, I mean it may provide a better condition than last year for sure, but who knows?
Yeah, no, who knows?
Like if you watch the farmers long range forecasts, like the droughts tend to go in 25-year cycles, and we're still 2 years away from our worst drought peak. Like 25, I think, is the peak of the
Why do
drought
they go in
cycle.
cycles like that?
I don't know. It's just weather patterns.
Okay. I don't know enough to.
But yeah, apparently it's of the 25-year cycle. Like I think 2025 or around there is supposed to be the peak. It might not be a 25-year cycle exactly. It might be a 40-year. Well, so it's in that range. Maybe I'm mixing up the numbers, but either way, I think 25 is the peak where it's going to get worse up until that point.
2025, you're saying?
Yeah. And then it will be basically 2029 will be or 27 will be as bad as it was this last year, and then like getting better over time. It obviously is not perfect or consistent. It's within that curve. Things fluctuate a lot, especially now. Who the fuck knows? But it's if that holds true, then that's not great.
Where's the money? Like, do you think there's money in like greenhouse technology? Like,
I think there's gonna have to be, because
can you vertical farm shit like wheat?
You can vertical farm anything,
but you need so much goddamn space.
The scale, yeah.
Like, you can't build, or I don't know. Can you? But like, tell me, can you build a fucking like 5,000 acre greenhouse?
Yeah,
if you were so inclined, like.
Well, I mean, you can do it via greenhouse, but also like hydroponics are extremely efficient. If you're not relying on natural light, like if you have artificial lighting, like full spectrum lighting, which again now you get into when we're gonna have a shortage of fucking full spectrum light technology.
Yeah, we're gonna fucking not have smart bulbs. Like
I've had a friend who's doing had a vertical farming business, and he's like, if you take the tallest building in the city and we by the height of the ceilings, how much we could fit per floor times number of floors, and then include basement and whatever, include all the levels of this building, it's like, yeah, that could feed like a third of the city.
Yeah.
Because the output is 24/7, 365 days a year, whereas a field only has growing days, which is hours of sunlight within, and also high enough temperature. But if that's a constant,
an acre of wheat is like $300.
yeah,
Like that's what they get paid.
yeah,
Like
yeah, it's like you got to do thousands and thousands of acres, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know what the technology limitations are on wheat. Like,
well, I feel because like people that vertical farm,
like wheat's not that good to feed people with. It's just what's cheap.
feed. Well, they use it for feed for animals. That's
Well, no,
a big
I'm
part of it.
Well, no, I'm thinking like the number of a lot of Ukraine's exports go to like feeding developing nations. That's like the 80% of their caloric intake is wheat.
Because bread
Yeah.
is like pretty efficient.
And
as
it's
far
like
as,
90, and we're talking about bread that's like 95% subsidized by the state
Yeah.
because people can't afford the real price of bread. Otherwise, they go hungry. Like we're talking about that level of food insecurity where they talked about decreasing, like in Egypt, the food subsidy or the like the bread subsidy from like 95% to 70% or whatever, and they basically overthrew the government and the president had to run. Like he had to flee the nation and they had a change of state.
Well, like
they're at that level, and now they're not going to be able to get the supply.
Well, okay. Here's another thing. It's like I always can you explain to me
Yes.
why conservative men are personally offended when other people eat Beyond Meat? Like you've seen this, right? Like where they're like, "You fucking soy boy," like these, like it's like they are personal. It's like we've talked about this on the podcast too. It's like these same people are personally offended when you're like, "Hey, maybe we should switch off oil because it's a finite resource."
Yeah.
They're like, "You fucking put like I'm gonna run my truck double long to warm it up just to piss you off." Like that. It's like, why? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, what is that? But the same people...
I guess it's because they're... Maybe it's because a lot of the definitions of masculinity are just around, like...
steak and whiskey?
Red meat and big trucks, yeah.
It's so weird.
Like, you gotta realize, people that say that have really fucking fragile egos. A really fragile sense of masculinity.
I've talked to these people before, and they're like, I would never... Government would have to kill me before they could make me eat fake meat.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what are you talking about?
We're talking about synthetic meat. It's 100% real. Actually, it might be better than any meat you've ever had.
Yeah, lab-grown meat is a cool... Because, like, Beyond Meat... I'm a Beyond Meat fan. I'll eat Beyond Meat burgers. I like those things. But lab-grown meat is actual meat, but they can, like, grow it in a petri dish.
Yeah, because human beings are absolutely meant to consume meat.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a critical part of your diet, depending on who you are. For some people, they don't need it, but some people, they definitely do.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're meant to have diverse diets. Like that's what we've evolved to have. Depends what your like genetic heritage is. That makes a big difference.
The region.
Like for example, if an Aboriginal person from Canada, from this area, eats a lot of refined grains, they're gonna have a bad time. They're gonna gain weight. They're gonna feel sick. It's not good for them.
Yeah. They're
meant to have like a much simpler diet. It's like what's on the fucking prairies, because that's what they've had for generations, right?
Yeah.
That's what they've adapted to. Like that's all it is. And yeah, I don't know how it's fucking tied up in masculinity and politics is.
Well, I've seen some
nobody's thinking about these things. That the fact that you're asking the question is already more than they've done.
Yeah, like I've literally seen people like they think that like COVID was trying to get us on a social credit system.
Yeah, which is fun.
And
I mean, they've been talking about that since barcodes were invented. Thanks, Hobby Lobby.
Yeah, so they were. I've seen people like on my Facebook that actually believe this.
Do you have a driver's license? There's a social credit system for you.
Because the evidence was the Trudeau freezing the bank accounts of those truckers. Right. Right. That was like, and then that's why they're anti cashless society. Because they're like, if we're just and that's why they're anti-electric vehicle as well. I've heard these people, they're like, well, they'll just fucking shut off your Tesla remotely and fucking take it, but they can't fucking do that to my truck. Yeah. But meanwhile, they can just come and repossess it, right? Like it's a truck, like.
Or they just shut off the tap at your gas station.
Or they just shoot you, like they don't. It doesn't like. Occam's razor, right? The simplest explanation is often the one that's correct. Like they don't need these complex systems to hack your car. They'll just show up and tow it, right? Like,
Yeah.
Anyway, but part of that, like, social credit thing, whatever, blah, 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 I've heard them go even farther, and they're like, okay, well, and then, so they're going to make it like, eating meat is illegal, and every time you eat a steak, you lose social credit score, and they'll freeze your bank account. Or you can't use your own money to buy meat because they'll know.
I mean, at some point, someone's gonna have to make mass, like, monoculture farming should probably be illegal at some point. Like,
Yeah.
because the human cost of that, like, I mean, eventually maybe they get robots to do this work, but currently they don't fucking do that. But like, think about the psychological cost of just like murdering thousands of animals a week for your job.
Yeah.
And you just like slit throats and you're wading around knee deep in blood. Like, that's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
Like that, you're gonna break something in that human being. Like, psychologically, they're not gonna be okay. Like, there's a human cost to everything, and also the actual environmental cost, and the fact that it's just not the fucking best way to do things. Or it won't be
anymore. Like, it's
the most efficient way currently.
Sure, but we definitely are approaching our kind of apex, at least in the first world, where if our population keeps swelling like this, it's like we just can't physically how much, isn't it like 50% of fucking like corn in the world is used to like feed cows?
Yeah,
something like that.
So let me be depressing as fuck for you for a second. Did I go on the topsoil rant the other day?
Yes, every 3 weeks you go on the topsoil rant.
Okay, so I'm not gonna do it again, but you have farmers that use, let's say, for ease of brand recognition, everyone knows Monsanto GMO crops. And if you don't know crops, what they are is you get these seeds and you have to plant them that year, or I guess you can hold them, whatever, but you can plant these seeds, but you cannot get more seeds from your crop. You have to buy more seeds because your crop will not produce more seeds.
They patented seeds.
Well, not just the patents of it, but like they don't produce them.
Dude,
they've modified them so they don't produce.
Yeah.
They can't reproduce. They can't germinate. So you have that system at the base level.
Imagine engineering plants to not be plants anymore.
I mean, you're dating a botanist, so.
Yeah, and she doesn't like that.
True. So you have that at the base level, and they're planting millions and millions of hectares of, let's say, corn, and they have wheat. And, like, corn specifically is evil because, like, corn should not be something that farmers even want to grow, but they do because there's a gigantic subsidy in the U.S. specifically on corn. Which
is why the soda pop industry functions so well.
With corn syrup, right?
Because the high fructose corn syrup is because of fucking corn subsidies. That's why pop is so cheap.
Yeah, and the corn lobby, literally. And then that also gets turned into animal feed. So you have this corn that's literally engineered exclusively for maximum yield. There's no regard for vitamin, nutritional mineral input because, I mean, they're just like planting corn on the same fucking field year after year, and they do like what is like a 7-year cyclical rotation of crops on the field. So 7 years in a row or 6 years in a row it'll be planted, and then 1 year is no planting at all.
Yes, yeah.
But they're tilling it every year.
And then you burn all your crops, right?
Well, you're burning off like the silage, like the waste and whatever. It's that's a different process.
You grew up in farm town. I did not.
Yeah. So, long story short, they're depleting the soil with every generation of crops.
Yeah.
And you're using that same soil. You're exposing it to sunlight. You're killing off the microbiomes, and you're planting the same crop. It's leaching the same minerals and nutrients. And every generation, there's less nutrients. Like, if you were to eat an orange out of Orange County.
Wow.
Yeah. If you eat an orange out of Orange County in, I think it was like, the comparison was about like 1920, and you eat an orange from that same orchard today, you have to eat 7 today to equal what you got out of an orange.
With the same nutrients?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Like that, it's the factor of that much.
Yeah.
And those are the inputs that are going into our livestock. They're eating depleted food. And in some places, I mean, this is kind of why the FDA came in to begin with. But I mean, the FDA is just fucking hacks now. But they were literally feeding, like, you know this process, obviously, Willows. They were taking the boiled and processed, like, beer inputs that come out of your mash tun. They were taking those, like, after boiling, after making the beer, they were taking that waste product, and that's what they were feeding their cattle.
Well, you can do that.
No, legally you can't.
Yeah, you can. All the breweries here sell their stuff to farmers for feed.
So they're still doing it here.
Yeah, 100%.
Jesus Christ. So this got regulated out in the U.S. like in the 30s.
Like you can do that.
Well, why would you? Because there's zero nutrient. You boiled off. It's like if you took your vegetables and you boiled them till they were clear, like transparent, and there's nothing left in them, and then then you dumped out all the water, you dumped out all the nutrients, and then you just like ate that empty husk.
What you're saying,
you would just die of malnutrition in fucking 3 weeks.
What you're saying makes a lot of sense to me, and it's making me rethink. But I know, I know the facts are, I know breweries that sell their spent grain to farmers.
They could be using it as not exclusively for feed, though.
Maybe I just assumed that they were using it as feed.
Maybe it's going into feed as a filler.
Okay.
For caloric volume.
Sure.
Maybe there is some calories there, but anyways, back in the day they were feeding that exclusively to cattle.
Yeah.
And then using those cattle, maybe this is for dairy specifically, they were using those cattle for dairy. And the milk that was coming out of those cows was so lacking nutrition that like the babies that were consuming that were like getting sick and dying of malnutrition. Like it was so depleted. Because your input's depleted, your cattle's depleted. These things look like they're fucking dying.
Yeah.
And they had to like color the milk because it was coming out weird.
Yeah.
And like there was
Well,
bad input, bad output.
They bleached it, right?
And then
that was a whole thing.
Yeah, they bleached it. They added plaster of Paris. They added fucking lead.
Yeah, we talked about this.
They added pure lead.
Yeah.
Like they did all these crazy things just to make it look like food again. And like that's exactly what we fucking have today. Like,
and here's something else that I was thinking. You ever read about like the Romans giving themselves lead poisoning because they didn't understand lead? And they built pipes out of it.
Right.
And you're like, how could you be
so dumb? Yeah.
How could you give yourself lead poisoning? And now 80% of humans have microplastics in their blood.
Yeah. Which everyone paying attention
predicted. I feel like this isn't getting enough news coverage, though.
Of course it's not. It's bad for petrochemicals. It's bad for the oil industry. Of course it's not going to get news.
Well, they released a study that confirmed that leaded gasoline lowered the average IQ.
It also increases, or it decreases your, what is it, like your like the mental and emotional process of like your reflexive response and like eagerness to use violence. What is it called? Impulse control. That's what it is. Took a really long time to get there. Leaded gasoline decreases your impulse control dramatically, which is why there was a fucking crime wave in like the 80s.
And now we have plastic in our brain?
In probably our blood.
Isn't better, right? Like, surely.
Well, I mean, there's studies have been done that we're losing fucking 10% fertility effectiveness every generation.
Because we have plastic in our penises.
There's plastic in everything. Think about 10% fertility decrease of every generation since plastics became like ubiquitous. Like,
where does it come from in our blood? I didn't actually read the article.
What do you mean? Where does it come from?
Is it just like in our food? The plastics, the microplastics.
It's in everything.
Why? But how does it get like in my body?
Through the food you eat.
Yeah.
Through daily contact. Like, name one thing that you consume. It's been in contact with plastic. It's been either passed through a plastic tube. It's been stored in a plastic container. It's had plastic wrap. It's been handled with plastic based tools, gloves, whatever. It's been in. There's no way that plastic is not breaking down at all.
and this is going to be like in 50 years, we're going to be like, or maybe longer, if we survive, we're going to be like, how the fuck were people so dumb they were eating plastic all the time?
Literally. Like
And just like the lead.
Yeah, and it's not like it's there's plastic and it's fine. It's like, no, plastic is bad. Like, if we were using hemp-based products and it was just this bioorganic stuff,
Dude.
and we had that in our bodies, we could metabolize it because our
Hemp-
bodies know what to do with it.
Hemp is like 100 times more effective per square meter than like plastic and rubber and shit. Like,
Yeah.
do you see the guy? There was a guy in like the 30s made a car out of hemp. So 100% hemp.
Yeah.
So it was a hemp, alloy, frame, hemp textured like textile seats and shit, and then ran on hemp oil, like fuel.
Yeah.
And he committed suicide with by shooting himself in the back of the head 3 times.
With a shotgun.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Just like the guy that made a car that ran on water in like 1901.
Yeah.
Committed suicide by shooting himself in the back of the head 5 times.
Same.
And then also beating the shit out of himself with a
Same gun, weirdly.
phone book. Yeah. But anyway, but like I'm being facetious, obviously. But Google hemp car; it was a real thing.
And they were, I believe all the prototypes were like destroyed, burnt.
I think something like that. Well, and then I read
I think all the prototypes or the technology was like purchased by a car maker, and then they were all burned.
I read some some blog that said by just switching toilet paper from paper to hemp,
Yeah.
and apparently they can make it identical, like it would be just as comfortable on your little bum. You would save like an immeasurable, like so many fucking trees.
So, here's a depressing mental exercise for
And
you.
it's better at CO2,
Oh, yeah, better for CO2
like
emissions.
significantly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, because, fun fact, cutting down trees is bad because trees store carbon.
Yes, you release it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why planting more trees is actually a horrible plan as a carbon hedge because, I mean, trees burn. Like, they don't actually store carbon for long enough to deal with global warming, which is fascinating. It's a short-term solution. It doesn't actually...
That's interesting because liberals are always like making fun of like Elon Musk offered like $100 million to someone who could capture carbon.
Yeah.
And it's like an open challenge. And liberals, I always see make fun of him, retweet it and go, "That's called a tree, you fucking idiot."
Yeah, no, it's actually not a fantastic carbon capture technology.
That's
like
interesting.
Even
Over a long enough time, I guess it is. But
if you look into the science, even at a surface level, like the conclusion, it's very conclusive.
liberals don't look into the science even at the surface level.
Nobody does.
That's fine. That's fair. I have never read an article past the headline.
Why would you?
My entire life.
Everything important is right there.
Not only that, I've never read a book past the first chapter.
Except for P.T. Barnum.
I've never read a textbook. I just look at the pictures. You ever open a textbook and it's like flip to page 437 and you flip there and there's a titty? And you're like, nice.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
That's the only thing I can remember from school.
It shows.
Also the beard and the lucky thing that I was talking about earlier.
Very enlightening. Anyway, depressing exercise. I don't want to forget it. So I also went through this in my head today, which just kind of added to the awful. So I'm going to pass it on to you because I hate everyone. You
can turn off the podcast now and return it on in 30 minutes if you need a break.
So let's say you just run to become a senator of your state.
Vote Willows.
This for Americans.
Oh, okay.
Senators in Canada are appointed and they don't do anything.
Sure.
So you just got elected to the Senate. And
the state Senate or the Senate?
The Senate.
Okay.
And you walk in, it's your first day, you're feeling all hot in your big britches, and you walk into like the your party's like lounge, like their cafeteria. and you're like, yeah, I'm big shit, I just won an election. And it's like one of those movies where it's a kid's first day at school and nobody lets you sit next to them. And
Okay.
fucking nobody gives a shit about you. And you're like, I've got this agenda, I'm ambitious, I'm gonna take down... And you had in your mind the things that we talked about today. That you're like, farming the way we do it is fucking suicide. It's literal suicide. The biggest piece of the Antarctic shelf ever that was previously thought forever stable just broke off yesterday.
Yep.
Monoculture, like cattle farming is evil, and because of these reasons is bad for the people in it, bad for everybody, bad for food, bad for whatever. There's a better way to do it. We can do it better. Like, you've got all these things in your mind, and then you look around the cafeteria and you see the table full of senators that are all from like farm country, and they look at you and they hate you because they've all seen your speeches. And then you look over here and you see the guys from Texas that make all their money on oil, and all their donors, pay them oil money, and they all got big houses because in Texas, when you run an election and you get all these donations, whatever you don't use in your campaign, you just keep.
Is that real?
For judgeships, it is, which is great because judges just become millionaires when they become judges, and they just happen to vote in favor of the people that made them rich.
Whoops.
Oops. And then you have the fucking automakers. You got the manufacturers. You got the automakers over here, the manufacturers, and they fucking look at you and they fucking hate you, and like nobody is gonna sit next to you. Nobody's gonna invite you over, except for that that one cool kid who's like, I don't know, the other member of the squad, the other one POC in the Senate, that token not with the program guy who's kind of cool, but you find out later he's actually just there to fucking drag you into the soup, into the swamp, and drag you down with everybody else. Like, that's the essence of getting into government. Like, everyone has all these interests, and if you want to pass fucking anything of any agenda, of any idea you've ever had into law, or even past getting to the point of even writing it into a bill that got onto the floor to get a vote, you're going to have to trade so many favors. You're going to have to back that guy's thing. You're going to have to endorse this farming thing. You're going to have to promote this petrochemical thing. You're going to have to do this fucking thing for Israel for some reason that nobody knows why, but they all do anyways because they have to. And then there's this defense spending bill, and then, oh fuck, COVID happens, and now everyone's yelling about ivermectin, like, and then all of a sudden it's been 18 months and you have to start campaigning again because it's the motherfucking midterms.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
This is what it's like to be a politician? Who in the fuck is ever gonna get anything done? Like,
well, and that's by design, right?
That's by design.
Yeah.
Like, the only people that get anything done are the corporations that have the staying power, that they're literally buying both sides of the aisle. They're just always there. Yeah. Like, the quote unquote deep state is just
bunch of rich guys.
Just follow the money.
Yeah.
The system is super depressing. Like, we're sitting here like we're the only ones that know the answers. It's like, no, everybody knows the answers, but nobody can do shit about it.
Yeah. Violent revolution.
And it's nobody's fault, right?
Violent revolution.
I don't even think it's violent revolution. I think we're all just gonna. It's just gonna be like this slow grinding.
Slow attrition time.
Yeah, it's the slow grind to the bottom.
Dying of microplastics time.
Yeah, like it's a death of 1,000 cuts.
Okay, last thing I wanted to talk about before we go into our final segment.
Depressing as hell. You're welcome.
Last thing I want to talk about here before we go into our final segment is Willard Smith. That's his actual
Willard
first name.
Smithsonian is his full name.
No, his actual first name is Willard, though. He just slapped the fuck out of Chris Rock.
Oh, really? I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, if you're listening from Futureland, this will go up in a week. Or if
you've already forgotten because
you've already forgotten, but I wanted to mention it just to document it because a lot of this podcast is about documenting our lives. And
Will Smith is a good friend of ours.
Willard is he'll actually be on this podcast, and he is. This is the more polarizing than the Ukraine-Russia invasion. Yeah, I haven't seen anything about COVID or Russia since this happened. I want to go on record saying fucking legendary. Like, this, he knows he's gonna get probably banned from the Oscars, might get his Oscar fucking revoked, like, might get an assault charge, like he didn't, thank God. Like, well, Chris Rock's, you know, well, they're black, right? Like, Chris Rock literally told the LAPD to go fuck themselves when they were like, hey, do you want to press charges? He's like, no, get out of here. Like,
Yeah.
which, like, of course, right?
Yeah, it's LAPD. Like, what do you...
But, you know, as he's running up there to, like, slap him, it's like, that's not what he's thinking in his head, right? It's, like, that's probably running through his head. It's like, I could go to fucking jail for this. I could lose my career. And he fucking did it anyway on live goddamn TV.
And then doubled down after he sat down.
Yeah. And went, keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. Like, legendary. And then, 20 minutes later, wins an Oscar, and they let him do his fucking speech. I read today, this was like 2 days ago, I read today they just released a statement saying they did try to make him leave, and he was like, no. And they didn't want to, like, physically, I guess, like, they didn't want to get involved, like, any further, like, because what are they going to do? Make their security physically throw Will Smith out? Like, that's what they were...
Knowing that he's about to get an Oscar?
They asked him to leave, and he was like, no, I'm not going to leave. And they just let him do his thing. Honestly, iconic. Like, I don't give a shit.
That's crazy.
Apparently, this was the lowest or the second lowest viewings ever at the Oscars. It was like less than 1 million people watching live. Went up to like 7.5 million when he slapped him. People like tuned in.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they saw it on Twitter and they're like, holy shit! And fucking like...
And then everyone watched him win and saw the speech. And
which is why people think it's a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
No. I absolutely do not. They do not have that level of creativity.
That's the biggest thing is, 100% the Academy doesn't have the fucking creativity.
Because if they did, they wouldn't be in this position.
Number two, like, Will Smith has this, like, carefully constructed, family-friendly... he wouldn't have cursed.
No.
If it was a bit... Not even a bit, but if it was a publicity stunt...
He wouldn't have done it.
He would have slapped them and then not done the fucking cursing and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
you would have sat down and deadpanned it or something.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
But I don't think...
And everyone can see what genuine... Like, I mean, they're actors. Granted, Will Smith is a brilliant actor, but that
dude,
looked like raw emotion.
But you saw that interview like 6 months ago where he was crying.
Yeah.
And like, dude, this guy's been through fucking hell. Like,
yeah.
And his wife's been cheating on him. And like,
everybody knows, and everyone fucking hates him for it.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like being cool about it because what else do you do? What do you... become a fucking screaming monster? Like, he's trying to deal with it in a human way, and people are shitting on him for that.
Yeah. Well, and I saw so many bad liberal fucking white takes, like, and granted I'm a white person obviously, but
and resent it.
Yeah, no, I love being white. Anyway, but, oh, that just canceled.
Just clip that out.
That just got me canceled. White privilege is awesome if we're being honest. Like,
oh, for sure.
Like, I get away with so much shit. You ever see that fucking like Brooklyn Nine-Nine where Holt, or not Holt, but Terry Crews, whatever his character's name is, gets arrested just like being outside of his house because he's black in a nice neighborhood?
I think his name in the show is Terry.
Is it? Okay, whatever. But anyway, and then it cuts, and they're like trying to figure out why, and they're like, oh, and then because Jake's like, and then it cuts and Jake's like breaking into a house with a mask on. And they're like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just pulling a prank on my friend. He's like, oh, okay. Like, you know, it's just like white people get away with that, right? Yeah. But anyway, like, so many goddamn terrible liberal takes that are like, this is so traumatizing, like all this shit. Like, number one, Harvey Weinstein has 130 films that he produced that still have Oscars, and they haven't even considered taking them away. Roman Polanski was convicted of rape. They, like, went to his house to arrest him. He, like, jumped out the window and, like, fled to Russia or whatever.
Ran all the way there.
Still won an Oscar, and they still awarded him. They awarded him, like...
via Skype or something.
Well, it was before Skype, but, like, this is the 90s, right? But it was, like, they had someone else accept the award and gave him a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Well, he was literally raped somebody. Like, and then fucking there was, the first indigenous person to win an Oscar or whatever. Fucking John Wayne almost punched her in the face. 4 people of security held him back as he was swinging on her. Because...
why?
Because she's native.
Like, what incited the incident? Like, what...
She was like she basically said America was racist or something.
Right.
And then John Wayne sprints up to punch the native woman, which
makes,
proves her point.
I'm gonna say which makes him that much more likable to his fan base.
And Clint Eastwood laughed at it or something, was this whole thing.
Yeah, well, fucking, that guy is famously extremely fucking racist.
Even Jim Carrey was being like, Will should be in jail or something. And then people are like, oh, is this you? And he won an award, walked up and like kissed the girl that gave it on the lips. Like, and she was like, afterwards, she was like, that was sexual assault. Like, you know, I did not consent to that. I'm married. Like, that's fine. Yeah. The first black woman that ever won an Oscar wasn't allowed in the hotel because it was segregated.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All this shit that I just said. And then liberals are like, this is the worst. This is the besmirch on the Academy. This is the worst thing. I am traumatized. Like,
well, at least they agreed with Tucker Carlson because Tucker Carlson called it a brawl. He said it was a brawl at the Oscars by these two black, like, he didn't say the black men part, but he's like, it's a brawl with like a picture of two black guys over his shoulder, and he's like, this is heinous, this is horrible, this is evil, this is awful, these fucking libs. And at this, you know, this is the same guy that calls January 6th a nice walk through the Capitol by law-abiding citizens.
Yeah.
It's like disregarding the people that were beaten to death. Like, that wasn't a brawl.
Yeah. When
it's okay. That's fine.
Like another, like,
it's fine.
Oh my god, just people are so dumb. And it's like, you know why everyone's so outraged? Like, not everyone, but like the Academy is so outraged because they all went to fucking private schools. Like, I don't know about you, people were fighting at 7:30 in the goddamn morning every single morning in my high school.
Not in my high school.
For like no like, how are you beefing? I'm sleepy.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like.
I remember thinking that once. I saw a fist fight in front of a McDonald's while I was like getting coffee in the morning. I'm like, who's got that much beef at this time? Like, I get being upset, but getting the energy to fight somebody at this hour?
Well, I saw a tweet that was like, anyone who's ever been slapped doesn't think this is a big deal, and people that haven't think it is a big deal.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, if you've ever been in a fight before.
Yeah, I mean, he responded to the slap within a second of being slapped.
And he said,
he wasn't
Will
hit that
Smith
hard.
just slapped the shit out of me, which is fucking iconic as well, honestly. Yeah. Like, the last thing I'll mention is that when he walked off stage, Samuel L. Jackson dapped him up and was like, hugged him and laughing. And it kind of looked like Sam Jackson was like, yeah, I want to beat the shit out of Chris Rock too. Like, so. Yeah, and then Sam Jackson won his first Oscar ever.
Yeah, nobody knows. I saw some videos of like Chris Rock after the fact, and he looked super shook. Really shook up.
But, you know, both of them. Yeah, I don't really care. I don't have this like morally we should never hit people thing.
I'm just glad that Chris Rock told the LAPD to go fuck themselves and didn't press charges, because that didn't need to happen.
Exactly. Yeah, he could have easily. It was 5,000 witnesses in person plus another like 8 million watching at home, right? Like,
yeah, plus the 50 million since then, or probably 500
probably
million.
More now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
this is the most viral thing that's happened in the Oscars since that Ellen selfie with Kevin Spacey's in it. So that's fun, because he'd probably just raped a 11-year-old boy right before that, allegedly.
Did you say the most violent thing or the most viral thing?
Viral thing.
Oh, okay, I think it's the most violent thing.
I mean...
since that... The most violent thing since that Ellen DeGeneres selfie. I'm like, that was pretty violent.
True. Yeah, anyway, we'll transfer here into our last segment called Tip of the Week. Tip of the Week.
Nailed it.
Thank you. Where Tyler and I gotta figure out a better intro for that. Anyway, this is the segment where Tyler and I give you a piece of advice that we are currently going through in life or business. My tip of the week is going back to talking about my watch obsession. Park your fucking money somewhere. If you have money in the bank right now, you're literally a buffoon.
True. Here's
looking at your girlfriend. You are, if you like.
Don't worry, it's all gonna be gone by summer.
I'm not kidding. If you have money in your bank account, you are literally losing 7% of it, like a year right now.
Yeah.
Which is like half. You will lose half your value of your money before 10 years is out. And people don't understand the basics of inflation. Don't even look it up. Don't even Google how inflation works. Just fucking park your money somewhere. Buy low risk index funds. Buy what's a good way to, like, watches obviously, but like what's a good way for, like, what's a lower risk way for people
The
to park their
lowest
money?
risk, government bonds.
Government bonds, gold,
Or just like
precious metals.
put it with a financial advisor and say, do something really conservative. Like,
Yeah.
there's a million ways to be really conservative with your money, to go like flat or barely over, or like just put it in the bank is gonna pay you
Well, no.
jack shit. No, don't do that.
Don't even buy a GIC. They're below, like, GICs are below
Inflation.
Inflation. Yeah. You need something that pays you at least 7, because people don't fucking think about, like, I talk to these people that are like, well, no, I actually had more money. I put in $10,000, and then after a year I got interest on it. So now I actually have like 10,100. So I actually have more money, because they don't understand
Yeah.
how inflation works, right?
Yeah.
But
It's sad.
I don't know. So park your money somewhere. That's my tip of the week.
True.
Every single week he knows this is coming.
I know it's coming.
And
It
every
just
single week he doesn't prepare for it.
I have several things that I want to say, but also I probably shouldn't say.
What is that? I think you should.
I don't know. I think it kind of. I already talked about it last week, though, just about like the be prepared for the cyclical nature of your business, and of like especially of people and staff.
Oh, you want to something? There was a new development from last time.
Yeah. So, anyways, we're losing more people, but also hiring more people. So like we're net even, but it's like.
But you can't hire for the experience that you lost, though, right?
No, we're hiring more experience than we lost. Like significantly more.
There you go, then.
Like we could, like more experience than I have.
But would you have been looking for that person if the first person didn't quit?
Yes.
Okay, well, then.
We would have been looking anyways.
Okay, well, I was gonna say if you weren't, then this is actually a fortuitous event.
No, I think maybe what I'm trying to find in there is like. I've probably brought this up before, but I'll say it again. Best advice I ever received was a guy told me, he's like 90% of the time when people quit or have they want a change of career, they want a change of job, they want a change of scenery, he's like 90% of the time you can't blame yourself, you can't blame your business. Like it's either it's going to be a personal issue, it's going to be some personal preference, it's going to be something you have no control over 90% of the time. And that's like for people running a decent business. If you're a piece of shit and your staff's turning over, maybe 90% it's your fault. This doesn't go for everybody. But I mean, we're talking about people that, reasonable people would consider good bosses, right? This is not a one size fits all. But if you go into staffing issues, if you go into like hiring, if you go into all your relationships with that assumption of like, I'm not going to take this personally, everything goes so much easier. Like I'm not really affected by this, and it really allows you to see it more clearly, because I mean, my business partner, like, he just kind of had a gut feeling. He's like, oh, I think something's not right there. So he started spending a lot more time with this person, and it's like, oh, okay, I think he needs to tell me something. And like, just was working with him a lot, and like, okay, now there's a change, right? And it was basically this person just got a really lucrative job offer from the previous boss, but it was a job that they fucking hated, but they had enough emotional distance from that job that it was, the pain from it was just kind of like a distant
so
memory.
He might be
right?
back in 6 months. We'll
Right.
see.
Almost certainly.
That's funny.
Well, I mean, it's seasonal work to begin with, but
That's right.
it's, for the last 4 months, been telling me all the awful things about this other job, and those did seem genuine. Obviously, he probably wasn't going over the good things as well, right? He enjoyed some things about it, obviously. So you kind of have to just factor that in. Like, I don't want to say it in a super cynical way, but you just really can't trust anything anybody says.
I like it. Don't trust a fucking soul.
Don't trust a fucking word.
Never trust a man unless he's Russell Brand.
True. Because I think the types of entrepreneurs, founders, business owners that usually make that mistake are ones that are very confident in their ability to read people. If anybody ever tells you they're really good at reading people, they're
lying.
really fucking not.
Yeah.
And their ego is so wrapped up in their ability to read people, it'll be like someone's like, oh, I'm not happy in this relationship. I'm like, yes, you are. You are perfect. Like,
because I read you.
Yeah, no, like my perception of your relationship is that you are, and you need to get back together because that's the right thing to do because I think that's right. Like, that's how you get that fucking attitude. If you want to see what that looks like, watch the show Kitchen Nightmares with Gordon Ramsay. Fucking great demonstration of that kind of attitude on display.
People are fucking... I cannot comprehend how people are like, my food's great. People love the food. And then
nobody ever complains, but also the restaurant's empty.
Yeah, well, and then I love when he does that. He's like, what customers?
Yeah.
Like,
nobody ever complains. He's like, yeah, because no one's in here. Because they don't come back.
Well, it's like, obviously, like, or when you ask them what's wrong with the restaurant, they say we don't have enough customers.
Yeah.
Like,
I have no idea.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. So, don't go out trusting people at their word because you don't tell the truth 100% of the time. You will disguise your true motivations, your true feelings all the time, right? You're conversing. If you're just talking shit with your buddies at work and you're talking shit about, let's say you're complaining about your spouse or your girlfriend or you're complaining about your friends or you're complaining about whatever, you're doing that because it's what people do, right? You do it to get along. You do it to get to know people. It's a bonding experience. Like bitching about the boss gets the workers closer together. They don't actually hate the boss. Like when they're with the boss, they might bitch about their coworkers. Like that's just what people do. You can't take that at its face value and just say, well, they said this, therefore that's what they believe. Yeah, and it's very important to keep that in mind because you're just fooling yourself. And yeah, people are just a hell of a lot more complicated than the fucking idea that you have of them in your mind. And yeah, with that being said, when I say don't trust people, what I really mean is don't trust your own fucking assumptions about people. Because you're probably wrong.
Unless you assume that we're cool, then
except for me, I'm never fucking wrong.
Hey, me neither.
Yeah, great. So on that end,
thank you for listening to the podcast. This has been Alcohol Beyond This Point. My name is Willows.
And my name is Tyler.
And you can stream this or watch it anywhere. Wherever you're watching it right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can also listen on Spotify, Apple Music, and a bunch of other stuff. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can also watch a video version on YouTube. You know what the best piece of advice I ever received was?
What?
Don't pee into the wind. Anyway, thank you.
Alcohol Beyond This Point podcast.
This isn't two podcasters talking business. This is two business guys trying to podcast.